Now 9 o'clock, court is now in session. Scotland County Circuit Court, that is. Now calling the following case, Dr. Randall Tobler, MD, versus Scotland County Memorial Hospital et al. Dr. Tobler appears in person of his attorney, Mr. Pearson. The defendant, Scotland County Memorial Hospital, appears by their attorney, Mr. Eric Tackle. This matter comes on this date on a amended petition seeking to determine whether or not there has been a sunshine violation and what action should be taken if one has been found. There has also been filed several filings prior to calling this case. One which we will take up first is a motion in limine which has been filed with Scotland County Hospital. So at this time, Mr. Pearson, are you ready to proceed to the hearing?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Packle, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Packle, do you wish to introduce folks who are sitting here at the council table?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. This is Robin Pollard, my paralegal, and this is Lori Folk, who is the chairperson of the hospital.
Any other appearances for the record?
Yes, sir.
All right. You may argue your motion in limine.
Well, thank you, Judge. It's pretty well laid out in the motion in limine, but the point that we're really trying to make is, according to the plaintiff's petition and first amendment petition, the claim that we're here to try is really limited to notice for the August 15, 2022 emergency board meeting, and the notice for the August 16, 2022 board meeting. And under the Sunshine Law, section 610.020, generally a public entity is supposed to provide 24 hours notice and is supposed to be in a readily accessible place. Under 610.0202, if it's for good cause, it's impossible or impractical, then those provisions don't apply. So the point of the motion in limine is the only person that can talk about that is Lori Folk, because Lori Folk is the person who decided to call the emergency meeting. She's the person who will testify about the good cause she felt the hospital had for calling the emergency meeting. So the claim is limited to those two. In addition to, they do make an allegation that the hospital didn't state the good cause in the meeting minutes, but then later in paragraph 24 and paragraph 27 of their amended petition, they actually allege that the hospital stated the good cause justifying the emergency meeting was due to potential financial and legal harm. They've already, through their own pleading, acknowledged that part. So frankly, I don't believe that allegation should even be in the case. Another point, plaintiff filed Friday, plaintiff filed a trial brief, and they added a couple of things, Judge. They added that the agenda was not posted prior to the August 15th or 16th meeting. That's nowhere in the petition. That's nowhere in the first amendment petition. So that wasn't pledged. So to sum it all up, Judge, the point of the motion in limine is that the evidence should be limited to the reasons why Lori Folk called the emergency meeting on August 15th and August 16th, why she decided there was cause to do that and not provide 24 hours notice, and things that led to that in Lori's mind. That's the reason for the motion.
Mr. Pearson, your response?
Thank you, Your Honor. I actually agree with part, maybe even most of what Mr. Packle said, but not all.
That's always a bad sign.
It is true that most of the evidence today is going to be through Ms. Folk. And she's the first witness I plan to call, Mr. Packle and I talked about that. But we have also pleaded that the violations were knowing and purposeful. And those findings that we're going to be asking the court to make are critical to us because they trigger the possibility of a civil penalty and an award of attorney's fees. The evidence that I plan to present that is not through Ms. Folk will be quite short. Might be one, might be two witnesses, but it will go largely to the state of mind, the knowledge that the board had about the Sunshine Law which goes to the fact of purposeful and intentional, knowing and purposeful violations. So that's all I've got to say.
We'll take the motion limiting with the case, and we'll putting the council on notice that the timely objection and well-stated basis for the objection will be necessary. Anything further preliminarily before we move to the evidence of the case?
I just have a question for the court because it might determine how much time we need today. I would like to have the opportunity after the trial to file either a post-hearing brief or proposed findings and conclusions. We have agreed to the admission of some documents, so as long as I can have the chance to kind of say after the hearing what I want to say about some of the documents, we won't actually have to do that through the witness today.
I do have a question about that. I'm glad you raised it. We have joint, stipulated exhibits.
Right, I was going to cover those, or you can't, but yeah.
Okay. Are they in, or do we need to, or do we stipulate that they are admissible?
I think you're stipulating that they're admissible. I think you still need to make your offer, and there still needs to be a foundation to be made to make sure the record is complete for the Court of Appeals.
Okay.
So just briefly, I'm not going to be anticipating if it's on your list. I do have your list, that I would not anticipate any argument unless something changes in the code course, then I'll of course take any argument that you may want to present. But I would say make sure you lay your foundation. Again, we want a clean record for the Court of Appeals and review this record.
Understood. I will tell the court that Mr. Pearson and I both stipulated to the admissibility of them. I appreciate your Honor's statement.
Any other preliminary matter?
Not from me, Your Honor.
All right, then you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I assume since we both filed pre-trial briefs, the court doesn't need opening statement.
No, you both of you outlined the points of contention very clearly. The court had reviewed all those last week, as well as going back through the entire file. So unless you want to make an open statement, I will not preclude you from doing so, but it's not necessary.
No, I think the issues are pretty clear. Plaintiff calls Lori Folk.
Ms. Folk, please raise your right hand. Please rise. Ms. Folk, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, matters pending before the court this day as you shall answer for God.
I do.
Please have a seat there on the witness stand. It's that last chair down here on the end. Witness.
Could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
It's Lori Folk, F-U-L-K, spelling the last name, L-O-R-I, first name.
Thank you. And you're the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Scotland County Hospital, right?
Yes, I am.
When did you first begin service on the board?
It was 2016.
Were you appointed or elected?
I was elected.
Have you been on the board ever since 2016?
Yes, I have.
When did you become the chair?
That was the election of 2020.
2020. So on August 15th and 16th of 2022, you were the chair of the board, right?
Yes, I was.
May I approach with a binder? Guess we want, that's what we want, defendants, right? Yeah. Okay. In your service on the board since 2016, has the board received training on the Missouri Sunshine Law?
No, they have not.
Never?
No.
Do you have, how about your CEO or your administrative staff? Are they trained on the Sunshine Law?
I wouldn't know that.
Let's talk about this time period around August 15th and 16th. At that point in time, did the hospital board have legal counsel?
Yes.
Did the legal counsel advise, let me ask this a different way. Did you speak to a lawyer on August 15th, 2022? I don't want you to tell me what the lawyer said, I just want to know if you spoke to one.
Yes, I did speak to an attorney.
And was that on the topic of the Sunshine Law?
We spoke about several things, not specific sunshine law.
Was the sunshine law one of those things?
I don't recall the sunshine law being one of those things, no.
Okay. Could you turn to Exhibit A, please, in the book? Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize Exhibit A?
Yes,
Is that your signature at the bottom?
yes, it is.
And who's, that's at the bottom left, correct?
Yes,
And whose signature is on the bottom right?
that is Christine Musgrove.
Who's that?
Who is the secretary of the current board.
Okay.
Well, just, Judge, do you have exhibit?
Oh, no. May I
Wait,
approach?
it's not.
I've got a binder for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. I was thinking he had, but sorry. No, I appreciate it. Just briefly tell the judge what Exhibit A is, please.
Exhibit A is the minutes from the emergency meeting of August 15th, 22.
And do those signatures at the bottom reflect that these are the official approved minutes?
Yes, they appear to be.
Move to admit Exhibit A, Your Honor.
They will be admitted, no objection.
No.
So if you look at the top there of Exhibit A, Ms. Folk, it says emergency special closed meeting called by Chairman Lori Folk. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And is that accurate? You called the emergency meeting.
Yes, I did.
Was there ever a roll call vote at that meeting to conduct a closed meeting?
I don't recall that we had a roll call.
It says, do you see, the third paragraph where it says call to order? Do you see that?
Third paragraph?
It has a Roman numeral 1.
Yes,
You see that?
yes,
And it says closed session agenda
Yes.
per consensus of the board. Right?
yes.
So is your memory that that decision to be in closed session was, quote, the consensus of the board?
There was no open part of the meeting to have a roll call to go into closed session. It was just a closed meeting. So called the meeting to order and we started the meeting.
How often does the board meet roughly?
Once a month.
So you've been on the board 8 years, right? Give or
As of
take.
now.
Yeah, you're right. As of now, and once a month it'd be about 100 meetings if I did the math right. So the details don't matter. Have you ever had a meeting at your house other than this one in Exhibit A?
We've never been in these circumstances before.
No, please answer my question. Have you ever had a meeting at your house?
No,
Have you had a meeting at anybody's house?
no,
Just this one time?
just this time.
Now, the minutes there in Exhibit A reflect that a gentleman, this is in the second paragraph, that 2 board members were absent. A person named Joe Dubet, D-O-U-B-E-T, and Robert Neese, N-E-E-S-E. Do you see that?
Yes,
Do you know why they weren't there?
yes, I do.
Could you tell me?
They were not called.
They weren't invited to the board meeting.
That is correct.
And they were on the board that day, August 15th.
They were.
And who made the decision not to invite them?
I did.
In the 100 or so meetings you've attended, can you think of another time where board members were intentionally not invited by the
No.
chair? That never happened any other time.
No,
And was the decision not to invite Mr. Dubit and Mr. Neese a decision that you personally made?
it was my decision to make based upon the emergency that we were in.
So, Joni Lloyd was also on the board at that time, right?
Yes, she was.
And she wasn't invited to the meeting until after 7 p.m., right?
That was a miscommunication.
Now, just answer my question,
I
please.
can't answer that question,
Well,
sir.
let me ask it a different way. I'm asking the questions here. Was Ms. Lloyd invited to the meeting only after 7 p.m.?
That is true, but you have to let me, I can't answer that with a simple yes or no question.
Well, actually, you can. That's
No,
a
I
yes or no
can't.
question. And
I
Mr.
can't.
Peckel is going to have an opportunity to examine it.
You're gonna answer the questions, ma'am. That's what you're here for.
Okay,
So answer the question.
that is true. She was invited at 7 o'clock.
So I'm going to give you a chance that I think you just wanted. Why was that she was only invited after the meeting was scheduled to start?
There was a miscommunication between the acting interim, the COO, but she thought that she was inviting Joni Lloyd. I thought she was, and she thought I was. It was strictly a miscommunication between the two of us.
And just so we're clear, what's the name of that person?
That is Megan Weber.
Okay. So why don't, I'm going to come back to the August 15th meeting in a minute. I think it'll be clearer for the judge if we did a couple of other documents. Could you look at Exhibit B, please? Do you have that? If you look at the second page, we have the same two signatures that we just saw in Exhibit A, right?
There are no signatures at the bottom of this page.
I said at the
Down
second
the
page.
second page. Yes, yes, sir.
So Exhibit B is the accurate, complete, and approved minutes of the August 16th, 2022 meeting.
Yes, sir.
Move to admit Exhibit B, Your Honor.
We will get middle of that,
So would you take a look at Exhibit C, please? It's a little small. Mr. Peckel's eyesight's obviously better than mine. But do you know what Exhibit C is?
Yes.
Did you tell the court?
It is a ledger document from the hospital. It is the timely write-off document for the fiscal year 21-22.
And could you explain to the judge just in general what that document is talking about?
The timely write-offs are, trying to do this as a simple explanation. It is for services rendered to patients. So they're billed, they're collected. And then in the next column, what we received, and in the next column, the difference. So sometimes we have things that for some reason are given back to us, maybe they're miscoded, and we have a certain amount of time to get those back in.
Okay. Could you take a look at Exhibit D? And again, just tell us in general what Exhibit D is.
This is another account, hospital ledger document, and this is for the hospital daycare.
Do you know whose handwriting is on that document, on Exhibit D?
I do not.
Have you seen this document without the handwriting?
No.
So this is
Okay, no.
This is the version you've seen. Okay, let's take a look at Exhibit E. And again, just briefly tell the judge what this is.
This is the pharmacy ledger.
And were Exhibits C, D, and E any part of the reason to the meeting on August 15th.
Yes.
So, do you recall when you first, let's just take them, well, let's take them as a group, and if we have to break it down, we'll do it the other way. Do you know when you first saw exhibits C, D, and E?
I first saw the timely write-off document, and it was the first week of August.
Okay.
And the other two documents, the ledger documents, I saw on August the 14th.
August 14th.
Yes.
Okay. Would you take a look? Well, I'll just ask it this way. I think we all know August 15th, 2022 was a Monday. Remember that?
Yes.
So you saw D and E on Sunday the 14th.
Yes.
Do you remember what time of day that was?
On the 14th.
On the 14th, sorry.
It was in the evening.
How did you, somebody send these to you, or how'd you get them?
No, I met with Megan Weber at her home.
And did she give them to you?
We viewed them together.
Okay. Do you know where she got them?
She had just run some ledger documents.
Okay. Are you familiar with Ms. Weber's handwriting?
I'm not.
So you don't know whether that handwriting is hers?
I can't speak to that.
Okay. So let's go back to Exhibit A now. And this is the minutes of the August 15th meeting. So I guess I should have asked you this first. This is, Scotland County Memorial Hospital is a public governmental body subject to the Sunshine Law, right?
It is.
So let's go up to the top, that first paragraph. And I'm paraphrasing, but it says you met to discuss pertinent matters under, citing the statute, you say legal matter, hiring, firing, and discipline of employees, and individually identifiable personnel information. Did I get that right?
Yes.
So tell me what the reason, given that's the legal statement, what's the practical reason that this meeting had to occur on the 15th at 7 o'clock?
There were tremendous financial concerns for the hospital.
Now, of course, those financial concerns aren't listed in the minutes, are they?
It is listed as a topic at the top. That is a broad term that we use, and it's listed there. In a closed meeting, we aren't specific, and you don't list line by line what those are. We do release that sometimes in our monthly meetings to the meeting. You can't list every little concern and what your discussion is, but there were financial concerns that needed immediate attention.
Do you know whether financial concerns are listed in section 610.021 of the Sunshine Law as a basis to close a meeting?
I can't speak to whether that's listed in the Sunshine Law.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. So I'm going to give you an exhibit in a moment, but I'll just represent to you to keep the paper a little clearer of that. There's a document that indicates that I believe Mr. Trueblood and Mr. Hatfield, those are board members, right?
They are.
Received notice of the August 15th meeting at 11:36 a.m.
That's correct.
So why couldn't you have had the meeting at noon the next day? Why was 7 o'clock better than noon?
At the time, I felt we were in a financially risk situation. I didn't know that I had 24 hours that would leave our finances at risk. I felt at the time it wasn't practical to leave those finances at risk. I didn't know if I had 5 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours. My job at that point was to protect the finances of the institution I stood for.
Well, what did you do between 11:36 and 7 p.m. that day to protect the finances?
First, I can't do that by myself. I needed the raise. And in between that time, my house was covered with every financial document I had, and I was studying those documents.
There was no, well, let me ask you this. I think you said there were monthly meetings.
They are.
Those, some sort of notice is posted somewhere that lists those meetings, right? Is that on the sorry, you have to say yes or no.
Yes.
Is that on the website of the hospital?
I believe it's posted on the website and then it's posted to a physical location.
Okay. Like there's a piece of paper somewhere in the hospital on a bulletin board or something. Neither of those things happened as to the August 15th meeting, right?
No, sir.
Okay. Could you turn to Exhibit J, please, in the book?
I have it.
Could you tell the judge what Exhibit J is generally?
These are the bylaws of the hospital.
And on the first page, it says amended as of March 29, 2022. Do you see that?
Yes.
So as best you know, these would be the bylaws that were in effect in August of 2020.
That is correct.
Would you go to page 4, please? Section 4.1 talks about the place of the meetings. You didn't do that on August 15th, right? You didn't follow the bylaws.
I feel I did follow the bylaws, sir.
How so?
We were in, this was not normal circumstances for a normal monthly meeting. If you look on down, this is exactly what I consulted. I'm not an attorney, I'm a music teacher. I looked on down for special meetings. This isn't a regular meeting, sir. We are in crisis mode here. So when I'm looking on down under special meetings, notice of special meetings, and I got to 4.6, waiver of notice, 4.7, quorum, presence of 1/2 of the whole board.
Well,
That is what I went by to call this meeting.
I apologize for interrupting you. You cited to 4.6, so let's talk about that.
Okay?
It talks about waiver of notice in writing. Did Mr. Dubit or did Mr. Neese waive notice of the August 15th meeting in writing?
I didn't read it that way.
I'm just asking you a factual
No.
question.
No.
So you don't have a piece of paper where either Mr. Dubit or Mr. Neese said, I'm waiving notice for that meeting?
That isn't the way I interpreted it.
Yeah, I got it.
So no.
I understand that. Your Honor, I would move for the admission of Exhibit J.
J will be better without objection.
You didn't offer C3, I didn't know.
Yeah, I thought you might do that.
Okay.
Is that okay? What?
Just trying to help.
I'm just trying to make sure you're on your toes. But what the heck, I guess she laid an adequate foundation. Your Honor, I'll just to clean this up, I'll move for the admission of exhibits C, D, and E.
C, D, and E will be admitted without objection.
Why not? So could you go to exhibit B, please, Ms. Falk? I think we've already established these are the minutes from August 16th. So was there a notice of this meeting posted on the website or at the hospital?
No, there was not.
And this time, Mr. Dubit and Mr. Neese are there, right?
Yes,
So how did the board members get notice of the August 16th meeting?
they were notified,
How?
I believe by text at this point.
Did Mr. Neese, let's take him first. Did Mr. Neese on the 16th or thereafter complain to you about the fact that he was not notified of the August 15th meeting?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
I can't recall exact words, but yes, he did. He wondered why he wasn't notified.
Would you describe him as being upset about that?
Yes.
How about Mr. Dubit?
I don't recall that particular conversation with Mr. Dubit.
At some point, I'm going to paraphrase here, but I think you told Mr. Neese that he should resign from the board. Do I have that right?
At one point, we had that conversation.
Do you recall when that was?
That was, I believe, on the 16th. I can't remember whether that was the 16th or the 18th.
And later, he did resign, but not on the 16th, right?
That's correct.
Could you go to exhibit K, please?
I have it.
Just generally tell the judge what this is.
August 30th was the regular monthly meeting of the board. And these are the, this is minutes from that meeting.
Okay. So would exhibit K be typical of the minutes from a regularly scheduled monthly meeting?
That is correct.
Could you look at the very bottom of page 1, and there's a paragraph called, that has the letter B in front of it. Do you see that right at the bottom of page 1?
Yes.
Approval of closed session agenda.
Mhm.
So it says that there was a motion by Dubit, second by Trueblood, to approve and discuss, I won't read it out loud, but I think we have the same things we saw in those emergency meetings, right?
Yes, we do.
Legal matters, hiring, firing, and discipline of employees, and individually identifiable personnel information. So, and then we say, this was accepted with everyone voting yes. Was that a roll call vote, do you recall?
I don't recall whether that was a roll call or many times it's just affirmative vote.
Okay. Could you look at the last page of exhibit K, please? I guess it's page 6, page 5. We have the same signatures we saw in A and B, right?
Yes.
So, Your Honor, I will move for the admission of Exhibit K.
Okay, we'll be admitted without objection.
Can I have just a moment to confer with Dr. Tobler?
Sure.
How do I mute this? We'll just walk over here in the corner.
Is this witness or you wish to reserve it?
I was gonna go ahead and do it all now.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Lori, I'm going to, I think, just hit on one of the things that Mr. Pearson talked about at the very end, and then we'll go backwards. You just testified that, or I think you agreed with Mr. Pearson that you had told Bob Neese he should resign, and words to that effect. Why?
At the time, the community, of course, whenever something like this happens, they come to you and we're a small community. It causes an uproar. Rumors and all of that. Pretty well known that Bob Neese and Dr. Tobler were close, we're friends. Bob was treasurer of the board. It began to spread to the community that the finances were a mess and rumors were galore. I just told him maybe he should resign.
Okay. That was it.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to waste the court's time, but I do want the court to get more context about some of the things that you discussed with Mr. Pearson, so I want to take these sort of chronologically. You already testified you got on the board in 2016. Will you tell the judge just briefly a little bit about who you are and your background?
I came to Scotland County in 1980 as a music teacher. Been married, my husband's here today, 40 plus years. We have 2 sons.
And music teacher was what you did for a living?
Music teacher for Scotland County right here, with a school system, and I have a master's in guidance and counseling.
Are you retired?
I'm retired.
Can you pull that? I can't hear. Maybe the court can. Can you pull that a little bit?
I can, yes.
Thank you.
I'll try to speak up.
Thank you. Okay, joined the board in 2016. What made you join the board?
My husband had a severe car accident in 2012. Horrific leg injuries to both legs. He was non-weight bearing from January to May. The physical therapy department at our little hospital was instrumental in helping him to walk again. So it's hard to get someone to serve a 6-year term on any board. And so when this happened, that we had an opening on the board, I was contacted and said, would you consider running for the board? It was a way to give back to the hospital that helped us in our time of need, a way to give back to the community. So I said I would run.
So you joined in 2016. Can you generally explain how the first couple of years went from your state?
Well, it's an overwhelming responsibility. It's like learning a foreign language. I can remember sitting in board meetings and I would take my legal pad and there's so many abbreviations and they all know them, but you're sitting there and you're scratching all this out and you're trying to learn the lingo. There's a lot to learn and it's a big responsibility. And I can remember stopping a board meeting and saying, now wait a minute, what is that? And then you didn't want to stop the meeting with your ignorance. And so I can remember finally, I believe it was the board secretary who gave me a list of common abbreviations from MHA, the Missouri Health Association, to help me learn and quickly what some of these things were. It's really a major thing to learn all of these things. So It's the first year and a half is a major learning time on that board.
When you got on the board, and up to August of 2022, was there any formal training on the Sunshine Law provided?
No, you get it's a huge 3-ring binder, that maybe 5 times as thick as this, that, it had a Sunshine Law book, like Dr. Tobler has there, that's in the insert. I'm not an attorney, so that's difficult to understand. But as far as formal training of the Sunshine Law, we didn't receive that.
At board meetings, when you first joined, and even after you became chair, who ran those meetings?
Well, the chair would introduce like each new agenda topic, but Dr. Tobler then would run with the meeting.
Before you were chair
Yes,
and after?
yes.
When you got on the board, did Dr. Tobler send you through some new chairperson, or I'm sorry, some new board member training, orientation?
No,
Did he sit down with you and talk to you about the Sunshine Law?
no.
During the first couple of years you were on the board, did you develop any concerns about the hospital's well-being?
Well, I came in when the pharmacy, I came in the middle of the pharmacy. We already had an established pharmacy in town that did the bulk of the business, and so I kind of came in the middle of that. It's kind of unpopular with part of the community. I'm not quite sure of how it was completely organized. By law, the hospital couldn't own the pharmacy, so somehow it was established through a foundation, which was still kind of under the hospital, so that always was kind of an enigma to me, how it was established. But I came in after that fact. We did not get regular financials on that. I would ask about it, and well, we're breaking even.
You would ask who?
Dr. Tobler. You know, money for a small rural hospital is always, you're never flush with funds. We got general ledger information, but we did not get service line information.
What do you mean by that?
In other words, we did not get in our financial reports from the board that this department, like X-ray, pulls in this amount of money. You know, we're pulling in this much from physical therapy and this much from, it wasn't separated like that. It was just general, we pulled in this amount of money.
And who provided that information to the board?
That was pulled together each month by the CFO, by Michael Brandon.
At Dr. Tobler's request.
I'm assuming.
All right, you mentioned the pharmacy, but around 2020 or so while you're chair, did you have concerns about the pharmacy?
I was concerned because this was a new venture, but we didn't get much feedback from that. And we began to, I mean, other rural hospitals were closing in southern Missouri. Dr. Tobler began to talk about service lines and maybe starting to have meetings about service lines that we may have to consider down the road closing certain service lines. But we didn't have specific information about service lines. It's hard to think about that when we don't have specific information.
Did you request the information?
We had requested specific service line information for about a year and a half.
Let me take you to the beginning of 2022. So the meetings we're here mainly to discuss were on August 15th and August 16th of 2022. You recall?
Sorry.
Well, so the issue today really is about August 15th and August 16th of 2022. I'm just using that as a benchmark. I want to go to the beginning of 2022.
Okay.
During the beginning of 2022, did you have concerns, or what were your feelings about the hospital's financial health in the beginning of 22?
We had gone through COVID, which had not helped our situation at all. So when we get to the spring of 22, let's say March
Okay.
22, things kind of began to change a little bit. As we approach March, I'm getting some phone calls from some customers of our pharmacy with questions as to why their checks are not clearing the pharmacy. They write their checks. It's taking 2 and 3 months for their checks to clear their accounts. And their 340B medications, which should be the same price they feel each month, are not. So I would just say, I don't have that information. So go talk to Michael Randall.
Okay, before you go on, these are members of the community
Yes,
call,
yes,
complaining about the community hospital
yes,
and their checks not getting cashed.
correct.
Okay. Did you have other, so that's the community.
Mhm.
Were there other concerns that you had in the beginning of 2022?
Yes.
What were those?
I began to have staff, a lot of supervisors contacting me, wanting to meet with me. Those discussions revealing that volume numbers and the budgets that we were receiving in monthly board meetings did not match their figures.
This is coming from staff.
Yes.
Where would you meet?
They would want to meet at my house. They would not want to meet at the hospital. They would hide their cars behind the berm in our driveway because they would not want to be seen talking with me.
Do you know why?
They feared retaliation.
From?
Dr. Tobler.
Let me go now to, well, first of all, when staff met with you and discussed the budgets being different from what the board saw, did that cause any concern for you?
Yes.
Why?
Then you begin to think, if their figures are correct, our budget figures are not, then you're being deceived somewhere along the line.
Let me go to June of 2022.
Oh, could I go back?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, at the March board meeting, Dr. Tobler submitted his letter of resignation also.
Was it immediate?
No, it was not an immediate letter of resignation. There was a time frame there
But-
that,
Sorry, but he submitted a notice of
Yes.
resignation.
yes.
Okay. I was going to June of 2022. Did you have concerns in June of 2022 regarding the hospital's financial health?
Yes.
What were those?
When we hit June, Dr. Tobler at the June meeting wanted to close OB. That kind of shocked me. First of all, he's an OB/GYN surgeon, head of OB. We had just gone through a huge, what we call a bundle, an OB bundle. We had a doctor and one of our nurse practitioners that had reached out to our Mennonite community. We were 65% Mennonite. Trying to reach out to them, pull them into the hospital, trying to get them, what can we do for you? What can we do to help you, to pull you into our facility? That bundle price had not been available for very long. And all of a sudden, he wants to push a vote on closing OB. And I do understand, you have to have a surgeon, you have to have an anesthesiologist on call. But you weren't vote on closing OB.
Did the board close it?
No.
Now let's go to July of 2022. What were your concerns if you had them in July of 2022?
Things continue to deteriorate financially. July of 22, I learned we're down to 6 days of cash on hand.
You learned that from who?
Dr. Tobler.
Explain, please.
6 days of cash on hand is one pay period. One pay period. If we have anything catastrophic happen, the air conditioners go down, or anything catastrophic, that is walking such a tightrope. 6 days of cash on hand. One pay period for 80 employees, $400,000. That's what it takes. It takes 6 days of cash on hand to pay our employees.
So how did this affect your state of mind concerning the hospital and being the chair of the hospital board?
At that point, I've had these discussions with employees who will not let me share this with the board. They would not go. I encouraged them to go en masse. Just go en masse to the board. Talk to the board. They were too fearful. They would not do that. We're down to 6 days of cash on hand. I don't know what's going on in the pharmacy. Supposedly there's a drawer of cash in the pharmacy that hadn't been deposited. I'm panicked. I'm in panic mode. What if we can't pay our employees? 2 hospitals have closed just to the south of us, at Mexico and at Fulton.
And this is July, and you're panicked about that.
Yes.
Now, let's go to August, the beginning of August. You were shown Exhibit C earlier. It should be in front of you. Can you look at that, please?
Yes.
And if I recall your testimony was you first saw Exhibit C the first week of August, 2022.
Yes.
That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, you explained some of this during your direct testimony. You explained what it was. But, for example, under the net column, and first of all, you said, if I heard you correctly, the fiscal year is July to June. Is that right?
Yes.
So, under the net column, it has a net of $5.7 million. Do you see that?
Yes.
And that's write-offs.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
It means we're down to 6 days of cash on hand. And I see this number. This is money that we could have fought for and gotten. Instead, we have written off $5,700,000. And if you look up above that, there's 4 months of zero, which meant we weren't working those claims.
This is the beginning of August.
Yes.
Before the first week of August, had you ever seen that the hospital under Randy Tobler's leadership was writing off almost $6 million?
No.
Did that cause you any concern?
I was floored. When we're down to 6 days of cash on hand, we're wondering if we can make payroll. And then another thing alarming in this is when we look over under, I believe, this is so small, I'm sorry, under, I believe it's October. Under, I believe it's the second column, and it shows 3 million, they were working that, $3,300,000 and some odd $1,000. And it's the same in both of those columns? You mean you build it and you collected it all perfectly? It's the same number in both of those columns? Well, that's never happened where we coded everything perfectly? That makes no sense.
Why?
That meant what you billed to the insurance. Nothing was hit back. It was perfection. There was no mistake in coding. That has never happened.
Did that cause you any concern? Did that raise a red flag?
It doesn't make sense. And yet, in the next columns over, for 4 straight months, we're not working those at all, those claims.
So how are you feeling after you see this document?
I'm appalled. I'm shocked. That just raises the panic level even more.
What did you do?
So I go back. I'm at the house. I have documents everywhere. Every document I've got. And I'm trying to make the finances make sense. I can't make it make sense. Nothing makes sense. And I'm thinking, okay, if what the supervisors are telling me, that their budget numbers, we've been told that we've never recovered from COVID. They're telling me we have. Our volumes are okay. We've come back. We're not being told correct things. If they're correct, we're writing off $6 million when we can't make payroll. And I'm thinking, on my watch, we're gonna lock these doors. What do we tell our employees? We're one of the biggest employers in Scotland County.
Okay.
I am appalled.
And I think you said you pulled more financial documents?
I pulled everything I had.
Now I want to go to August 14, 2022. You already testified a little bit about this, but the first thing is Exhibit D, and I've actually, well, it's just the same. I just pulled it up.
Oh, okay.
So, this is the same as Exhibit D. And you testified about this earlier a little bit, but you first saw this the evening of August 14th?
Yes.
Prior to August 14th, had you seen a document like this for the daycare?
No.
What impact did this have on you when you saw this document?
I remember looking at it and asking, is this the correct account?
Why?
We had maybe eight kids in daycare. For 8 children. How could we spend $500,000 in 4 years? I can't make this make sense. We have 8 kids maybe in daycare. And I'm looking at this. I can't fathom that we have run $500,000 through the daycare account. It doesn't make sense.
You couldn't wrap your head around $500,000 being run?
No.
You used this phrase, running through that account. What do you mean?
When you have 8 children, to take care of 8 children, and employees, their salaries, and yes, you're gonna have some food costs, but not $500,000. Where did the money go? What was it spent on? I don't understand.
Then you also talked about Exhibit E. And that's the same as Exhibit E in front of you. This was for the pharmacy, and you mentioned this earlier. Prior to August 14, 2022, have you seen a document showing the pharmacy like this?
No.
And in this document, it shows that the pharmacy spent over 4.5 years, over $16 million.
Yes,
Did that cause you concern?
I was floored.
Why?
Again, it's a small pharmacy. We did not do the bulk of the business in town. How did we run $16 million through that pharmacy in 4 years? I'm blown away. I'm blown away. When I saw this, and I remember telling Megan, we are bleeding out everywhere.
Did you feel you were in a crisis?
We were in a crisis. I didn't think we were in a crisis. We were in a crisis.
So, after seeing those documents the evening of August 14th of 2022, what did you do?
I went home and I can remember my mind just swirling with trying to make something make sense. I'm looking at documents, I can't make it make sense. And I called another board member and I said, we have to do something or we're gonna have to lock the doors. And I said, we need to go to the bank and we need to go tomorrow. Can you meet me there at 9 o'clock?
So, did you say his name?
No, I didn't.
Who was?
Travis Trueblood.
So you talked to Mr. Trueblood the evening of the 14th, did you meet me at the bank the morning of the 15th? The
Yes.
morning of the 15th, did you go to the bank?
Yes, we did.
And what happened at the bank?
We met with the branch manager and she followed protocol. There was a lot she couldn't tell us because we were not on any accounts as signers.
A lot that the bank, branch manager couldn't tell the chair of the board because you weren't a signer. Was that news to you?
No, because my husband is a banker. So I understood that she had to follow protocol. What she could tell us was the accounts were under a major heading of Scotland County Memorial Hospital. Underneath that heading, there were many accounts. The main hospital ledger had 2 signers. And those signers were Bob Deese and Michael Brandon, who was the CFO. The pharmacy had 2 signers, and that was Dr. Tobler and Michael Brandon. The concerning part, which absolutely made everything to me even more emergent, it was set up on a 1-signer system.
Okay. Please explain what you mean by that.
What I mean by that, it's any one of those signers. There was no checks and balances. Any one of them could have written a check and cleaned out the account without anybody being the wiser, or without permission, with no checks and balances, and the funds would have been gone.
Was it news to you that the accounts of the hospital were single signer accounts?
I was appalled. That is the poorest business practice that takes in public funds. I was appalled.
Let me show you. Exhibit F. Do you recognize Exhibit F?
Yes.
What is Exhibit F?
This is the signer's page for the hospital.
From the bank,
Yes,
and you were the chair at the time
yes.
offering Exhibit F.
Any objection?
Let me just have just a moment.
Sure.
No objection.
Exhibit F is admitted without objection.
Thank you. On Exhibit F, Lori, if you look on the right-hand side, and blow this one up. If you look on the right-hand side, under account number, and you go down after that box, it says number of signatures required for withdrawal. Do you see that?
Yes,
And then it says one.
yes,
Is that what you're referring to as the single signer?
yes,
And then at the bottom, the authorized signatories are Mr. Neese and Mr. Brandon.
that's correct.
And Mr. Neese was the treasurer for the hospital board,
Yes,
and Mr. Brandon was the CFO, is that right?
yes,
And if I heard your testimony correctly, the concern is, it's not that Bob Neese did anything wrong or inappropriate, or even at that point that Michael Brandon did. But the concern is, either one of them had the authority to, I think you said, wipe out the account if they wanted to.
that's correct.
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Let me go to Exhibit G. You recognize Exhibit G.
Yes,
It's very similar to,
yes,
yeah, right. Is Exhibit G another bank account from the Bank of Memphis concerning the hospital?
yes.
Offer Exhibit G.
No objection.
G will be admitted without exception.
So on Exhibit G, same thing. If you look on the right side, it says number of signatures required for withdrawal. And it says one. Was this another document that caused you concern on August 15th?
Absolutely.
Then I want to show you Exhibit H. Do you recognize Exhibit H?
Yes,
And similar to F and G, this is a bank account for the hospital at the Bank of Memphis.
yes,
Is this a true and accurate copy?
yes.
Offer Exhibit H.
Any objection?
No objection.
H will be admitted without objection.
So at the top, on the right-hand side, at the top of Exhibit H, it says Scotland, it's abbreviated, but I'm gonna say more. Scotland County Community Health, DEV Services, Inc., DBA Memphis Community Pharmacy.
Yes,
Was it your understanding that this is the account for the pharmacy?
it is Thompson.
And then at the bottom, who are the two people authorized to withdraw money from the pharmacy?
Michael Brandon and Dr. Tobler.
Were either Randy Tobler or Michael Brandon members of the board?
No,
Was there any board member that had authority to oversee the pharmacy?
not according to these signatures.
Was this news to you?
Yes.
When you found out that nobody from the board was on the account for the pharmacy?
Yes,
Did that cause you concern?
yes.
After you saw these, or learned of the single signer accounts, what did you do?
At that point, I am,
We're on August 15th.
on August the 15th, after learning of this was kind of the icing on the cake. This is not the way business accounts should be set up. single signer system. I can remember emotions are all over the place. I'm worried, angry that this is set up this way. It puts the finances of the hospital in peril. All of the things that we have already discussed, the 6 days of cash on hand, the worry from staff over incorrect volume numbers, financial numbers, it all has just kept building to this.
So what did you do?
I went home. I'm not an attorney, I'm a music teacher. I get out the hospital bylaws. I know they're written in occurrence with state law. I'm looking at the bylaws, I'm scouring the bylaws, what do I do? I mean, I've never been in this circumstance before. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I'm reading through the bylaws, we've got to have a meeting. We have got to protect the finances of this institution that we swore to hold. We've got to have a meeting. I called Travis, and I call a meeting.
You mentioned the bylaws. So first of all, you called, we're on August 15, 2022, you called a meeting for that evening?
Yes.
You didn't wait 24 hours.
I didn't think I had 24, I didn't know if I had 5 hours.
Why?
Every hour at that point, everything's on fire. Do you wait to call the fire department? You know, we have to protect the finances. They are at risk. Every hour that goes by, we leave our finances in an at-risk and vulnerable situation.
At the time you called that meeting, did you think you were violating the Sunshine Law?
No, I did not.
At the time you called that meeting, did you do that with some intent to intentionally defy the Sunshine Law?
No, sir.
You mentioned the bylaws. Those are Exhibit J. I want to look at those quickly, if you pull those out. Because you said, if I heard you correctly, you looked at the bylaws the afternoon of August 15th, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then earlier, you pointed to page 4, which is Article 4. I'll wait for you. Exhibit J. And then go to page 4. So earlier you testified about looking at section 4.4, 4.6, and 4.7. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Explain please to the court how you interpreted those 3 provisions.
When I looked at 4.6, the way I interpreted the waiver, I interpreted that it was just the normal waiver to post it. That's the way I interpreted it. And as I went on down.
Well, hold on, let's stay at 4.6.
Okay.
It says, any notice provided or required to be given to the directors may be waived in writing by any of them, whether before or after the time stated therein. So, is there any other way that you read that?
I just thought by including it in our minutes, that would cover that.
Okay, and then you mentioned 4.7. How did you interpret 4.7?
That as long as we had half of the board there, that we were okay.
So you call this meeting, I'm on August 15, You already testified about a little bit about this. You didn't notify Mr. Neese, is that right?
I did not,
And you didn't notify Mr. Dubit?
I did not,
And are you claiming that you tried and maybe something got messed up?
no.
You mentioned a little bit, but I'd like the court to have a little more understanding about why you didn't notify Mr. Neese or Mr. Dubit of the meeting on August 15th.
Our finances, as I just stated, I felt our finances were in peril. I didn't know, when we went to the bank, I didn't even mention yet, we didn't even know if there was internet access. Who else had access? Didn't know that. She couldn't tell us that. What I did know is that Dr. Tobler, Michael Brandon, Bob Neese, those 4 signatures that we've talked about, could write a check anytime on the hospital account. Bob Neese was one of them. Bob Neese and Dr. Tobler are close. Joe helped set up these accounts.
Joe who?
Joe Dubit.
Okay.
I could not take a chance with word getting out to any of them and risk those finances. And I did not call them for that reason.
But when you didn't call them on August 15th, did you believe the bylaws provided you the authority to do that if you had a quorum?
Yes,
Did you think it would have been possible or practical to go ahead and give more than 24 hours notice and hold the meeting 30 hours away?
we were in crisis mode at that point with the finances. I felt that.
So did you think it would have been practical to wait?
No.
Did you think it would have been practical to wait more than 24 hours?
At that point, sir, I didn't know how much time we had to protect those finances. And under my watch, how could I face those employees
Okay,
if those finances were not protected?
but answer my question. Did you think it would have been practical
No, it wasn't practical,
to wait more than 24 hours?
no.
Okay. You've already looked at Exhibit A. It's already in the record. Yeah. So if you look at Exhibit A, please. Under Exhibit A, it states, at the very beginning, emergency special closed meeting called by Chairman Lori Falk to discuss pertinent matters pursuant to Missouri Sunshine Law 610-021, Sections 1, legal matter, 3, hiring, firing, and discipline of employees, 13, individually identifiable personnel information. This meeting was convened on an emergency basis with less than 24 hours notice due to legal and financial concerns. Do you see that?
Yes,
Were the due to legal and financial concerns the cause that you had for holding the emergency meeting?
yes, sir.
And it's reflected right there in the meeting minutes, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Do you have Exhibit L in front of you?
Yes,
Will you look at paragraph on page 4, paragraph 24? You see that?
yes,
And you understand that this is the first amended petition that was filed in this lawsuit by the plaintiff?
yes,
Paragraph 24 states in the last sentence that the nature of the good cause is stated to be due to the potential financial and legal harm to SCH. Do you see that?
yes,
That's in the plaintiff's own petition, right?
yes,
And if you look at the next page in paragraph 27, do you see where, again, they reference the good cause? the exact same closed meeting exceptions and nature of good cause for less than 24 hours notice are cited in the minutes for the August 16 meeting.
Yes, sir.
I'm back on August 15th. What was the conclusion of the meeting?
The conclusion of the meeting was to release Michael Brandon the next morning and Dr. Tobler the next evening.
The next evening being the evening of the 16th.
Yes.
So now I want to go to August 16, 2022, the next day after the 15th meeting. Did you go to the hospital?
Yes.
And was Mr. Brandon released at the hospital?
Yes.
Did anything else happen on August 16, 2022 while you were at the hospital?
Yes.
What?
I went into the financial office and while I was there, it was discovered there were other accounts other than at the Bank of Kirksville.
Was that news to you?
Shocking, yes.
What other accounts?
There were just some other accounts at other banks that the board did not know anything about.
Did you, as the chair of the board, were you aware of the hospital having accounts at any bank other than the Bank of Kirksville?
No.
Let me show you Exhibit I. Do you recognize Exhibit I?
Yes, this is a lockbox account at Commerce Bank in Columbia.
For who?
For the hospital.
And is that a true and accurate copy of the account?
Yes.
Offer Exhibit I.
Any objection?
No objection.
I would be admitted without objection.
First question, Lori, is at the top it says Commerce Bank. Do you see that?
Yes.
While you were the chair of the board prior to August 16th, were you aware that the hospital that you were the chair of the board had an account at Commerce Bank?
No.
Were you aware that the hospital had, you called it a lockbox? What do you mean by that, briefly?
A lockbox is set up where payments can go to that lockbox that can be held, post-dated even, and held until that date.
What sort of payments?
This particular lockbox is for our insurance.
And if you look down on Exhibit I for Commerce Bank, there are two authorized agents. Do you see that?
Yes,
And the two authorized agents are Mr. Brandon and Mr. Tobler.
that's correct.
Are there any board members that are authorized agents?
No,
Bob Nee says the treasurer's not on this list.
no,
Does that cause you concern that there's an account at a bank you didn't know that the hospital had an account at where no board member is listed as an authorized agent?
absolutely.
And so, after learning of things such as Exhibit I on August 16th, and after Mr. Brandon is released, what did you do?
I'm sorry, repeat your question.
I'm on August 16th, Mr. Brandon's been released, you become aware of other accounts you weren't aware of. What did you do then?
While I'm still there, things are, as you can imagine, it's chaos there. Also learn while I'm there, the Medicare participation form has not been filed. So we are trying to file for an extension. That would have closed us right there. Most of our patients are Medicare. It should have already been filed. So we are trying to contact Medicare to enable us to get an extension because it's past the time it should have been filed. That's going on also in chaos. trying to contact all of these other accounts to close them. All of that's going on. We are in the process of trying to hire an attorney.
That wasn't me, was it?
No, it wasn't you. We have to protect accounts of the bank. We have to have another meeting because we have to get new signage on this insurance one right here. Now, there's no signers on the insurance.
You're pointing at exhibit I.
At I. Now there's no signers on the insurance lockbox. There's only one signer now on the hospital accounts. We have to set up new signers. We have to put some kind of checks and balances on the Bank of Kirksville accounts. So the finances are just as much as in peril as they were before, even more so. So we call a meeting for that evening, or I call a meeting so that we can protect those accounts, figure out how to get those accounts with some kind of checks and balances, hire a new attorney, and also, I believe we also at that meeting stopped the retirement account because there were some questions with it.
Did you check the sunshine laws before the meeting, before you called the meeting on August 16th?
It was the same format as before. I went with the bylaws up. I did not check the sunshine.
Did you invite Mr. Neese?
Yes,
Did you invite Mr. Dugan?
Yes.
Did you invite all board?
yes.
Why did you include Mr. Neese for the August 16th meeting?
We needed everyone there at that point as we sailed into these waters to protect accounts. The threat at that point, Michael Brandon was gone, Dr. Tobler was gone. It wasn't worried about leaking that information like before. Bob Meeks was the treasurer. He was the one on the accounts. And we needed, as far as the bank had told us, he was going to have to be the signer to help us navigate and secure the accounts.
And why include Mr. Dugan on August 16th?
It was fine at that point for both of them to be there.
At that point, when you called the meeting on August 16th, did you believe you were violating the sunshine law?
No, sir, I did not believe I was violating sunshine law. We were still in full-blown crisis mode with our finances.
Did you think on August 16th, 2022, it would have been practical to wait a couple of days before you had the meeting?
No.
Why not?
As I just explained, our finances were, as I just explained, with the insurance, we had no signer. We had one signer on all of our hospital ledgers. No checks and balances with any of the accounts. We were in crisis mode.
When you called the meeting on August 16th, were you purposely trying to violate the sunshine law?
Absolutely not.
I don't recall if I did this, but if you look at Exhibit B, I know we did this for August 15th. Tell me when you have Exhibit B in front of you. The same thing as Exhibit A, but if you look at the last sentence before the parentheses, in the first paragraph, it says, "This meeting was convened on an emergency basis with less than 24 hours notice due to financial and legal concerns for SCHDUC."
I do,
Was that the good cause that you had for calling an emergency meeting?
absolutely.
And it's stated in the meeting minutes right there.
It is.
Exhibit K was entered into evidence. If you look at that, I just want to look at something brief. Do you have Exhibit K in front of you? Please go to page 4 of 5. And it has what we call base stamps at the bottom. The S says SCM, bunch of zeros and a 13. Do you see that? Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Okay, if you look at Roman numeral 10, capital A, 3/4 of the way down the page. Do you see that? That says approval of minutes and personnel action of July 26th closed session and special closed meetings of August 15, 16, and 18. Do you see that?
I do.
It was the full board at this August 30 meeting.
Yes.
So was that essentially a ratification by the same full board?
Objection calls for a legal conclusion.
Sustain, but lay a better foundation if you want to inquire about that.
All the board members were there.
Yes.
Well, I think that the exhibit's good. Okay, Lori, I think the last thing, but that's famous last words for all of us that I have to ask is, when the board goes into a closed session, I'm talking anytime the board goes into a closed session, does the public get to sit in on the closed session?
No.
Does the media get to come into a closed session?
No.
And the emergency meetings on August 15th and 16th, were those closed meetings?
They were.
Were those called as closed meetings?
Yes, they were.
So if you had given more than 24 hours notice before those meetings, and notice had gone to the public, and you had gone into closed session, would the public have been part of it?
No.
Do you believe in your heart of hearts it would have been possible or practical to get more than 24 hours notice before August 15th meeting or the August 16th meeting?
No, I don't.
That's all I have, Judge.
We'll take about a 10-minute recess.
We have a short break.
I just took a 10-minute, that's about as short as I'm gonna make it. Yeah, 10 minutes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I couldn't see you over the monitor.
Yeah, my associate likes to hide behind the monitors, I like to sit up front.
Yeah.
I apologize, Your Honor.
No, have a seat.
It was a long line in the restroom.
Court is back in session. At the time of the recess, we had just completed the cross-examination by the defendant. And you may inquire on the brief.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you please turn to Exhibit F? I think you have it in the book and you also have the paper, the copy that Mr. Packel handed you. They're the same. You have it? Look over on the right side. You see a box there that says backup withholding certifications? You see that box?
Yes.
And there's a signature. Do you know who that is?
I can't make out the signature, I'm sorry.
What's the date next to it? Can you make that out?
8/29/14?
Right. And then go take a look, if you would, on the left side. Do you see near the top where it says account owner's name and address? Scotland County Memorial Hospital? Do you see
I
that?
do.
And what does it say below the address there?
Below the address,
Yeah. You see where it says revised
Yes.
date?
change signers, and then it has permanent board.
So there's a little bit of shorthand there, but I think we can agree that what that is indicating is that on August 29th, 2014, the signers for the SCMH board were changed. Do you read it that way?
I suppose that's what it means.
And that was 8 years before August 15th of 2022,
Yes,
almost to the day.
okay.
And during those 8 years, do you have any knowledge that Mr. Neese, quote, cleaned out the account as you testified you were afraid could happen on the 15th of August?
No,
And similarly, do you have any evidence that Mr. Brandon ever, quote, cleaned out the account during that 8-year period?
no.
Just take a look at G.
I have it.
So again, over where we have the account owner, the Scotland County Memorial Hospital payroll, I guess this is a separate account, is that your understanding?
Yes,
And it also, just as with Exhibit F, it says, revised date, 8/29/14, change signers per SCMH board.
correct.
So that would seem to tell us that the board approved that changing of the signers. And if we look at the right, we have Mr. Neese and Mr. Brand, correct?
That's correct.
So during the 8 years between August of 14 and August of 22, do you have any knowledge of Mr. Neese cleaning out the
I do not
account?
have that knowledge,
Do you have any knowledge of Mr. Brandon cleaning out the account?
no.
On August 15th, when you went to the bank and looked at these cards, I think is what you testified, did you look and see that these cards have been in place for 8 years?
No. My
No,
point.
just yes or no?
No,
So let's go to Exhibit H. This form is a little different, right? So over on the right, we have the account owner's name.
Yes.
I think we can agree that this is the account for the pharmacy.
yes,
Is that right?
it is.
So the board of the pharmacy and the board of the hospital are not the same.
They're not.
At the time of this signature, well, let me back up. Were Mr. Brandon or Dr. Tobler on the board of the pharmacy?
No. Well, I don't have a listing of the board. The foundation is separate from the board of the hospital.
Right. And
It
by
has its own
foundation,
board.
do you mean the pharmacy?
The pharmacy, this is confusing. The pharmacy is under the foundation, as a separate board from the board of the hospital.
Got it. Do you know who's on the board of the foundation on August 15th, 2022?
I don't have that information.
So you testified, I believe, if I understood you right, that you were concerned about Exhibit H because there was no board member on the signature card. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But that might not be right, because there could, Mr. Brandon or Dr. Tobler could be on the foundation board, not the hospital board, right?
Correct.
And you don't know who's on the foundation board.
Correct.
Exhibit I, please. I think you said that this is, sorry, I'll give you a moment. I don't want to go too fast. I think you said this is a lockbox.
It is.
I'm not sure I understood that. Could you just, in a sentence or two, describe that for the judge?
A lockbox account is an account where you can make payments through, if you want to hold a payment, like if somebody wants to make a payment, you can hold that payment, post-date that payment to a certain date. This particular lockbox is for our insurance payments.
It looks like this was opened, if you look at the bottom right, was opened on April 6th, 2022. Does that seem right?
That's the date it shows.
And you said, I believe, that the board didn't approve establishing the lockbox. Can you
As
speak?
far as I know.
Could you go to Exhibit D, please?
D,
D as in dog.
I have it,
And this is about the daycare, right?
yes.
So why does the hospital have a daycare?
It was just offered as a nice perk for hospital employees that would like to take advantage of it.
Okay, so was it ever designed to make money? Or was it?
No, it never did make money according to Dr. Tobler. It was breaking even or losing most of the time,
But it was never designed to make money, you just said that, right?
according to Dr. Tobler. It was losing money.
Well, what about according to you? Did
I
you
don't
ever
have-
have an intent that the daycare would make money as the board president? Or chair,
I'm the
sorry.
chair, the president.
Chair.
We didn't get finances particularly.
No, you're not asking my question.
And
Answer
would
my
you please
question.
restate?
As the board chair, did you have an intent that the daycare would ever make money?
We hoped it would break even.
Could you look at Exhibit E, please?
I have it.
And you see the handwritten bubble down
I
there?
do.
And I think we can agree, it says 3.58 million per year revenue, right? So that's not a loss or gain, that's just the money in the door on the revenue side, correct?
Correct?
And why is that number alarming or a problem?
I didn't speak to that.
Okay,
My alarm was how much money was going through the account. The
could you say that
16
again, I'm
million
sorry?
The 16 million going through the account. That's a huge expenditure.
But, well, I think you answered my question, thank you. I think you testified that there were 8 kids in the daycare. Are you sure of that?
I can't speak. I said 8 to 10. That's what I recall. We did not have huge numbers in the daycare.
Well, is it fair to say you don't really know how many?
I can't give you an exact number. 8 to 10 is what I recall.
Okay. You didn't testify about this, but I think it's within the scope. You did testify how alarmed you were on the 15th when you saw these cards, exhibits F, G, H, and I. I got that right, I think. So, what did you do to fix that?
That was fixed on the evening of the 16th.
Okay, so somebody go to the bank and, are there new cards?
Yes,
Okay. Do they require 2 signatures?
yes.
Nothing else, thank you.
Please. Thank you. Lori, exhibit, I'm gonna cover both at the same time because the questions were the same path. Please.
I have it.
Okay. Mr. Pearson pointed you to the left-hand side, revised date, August 29, 2014. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Were you on the board?
No,
Were you on the board on August 29, 2014?
no, I was not.
And even if it was revised on August 29, 2014, do you see anywhere where it was revised to require more than a single signer?
No.
You were just asked this. Exhibit I, the date is April 6, 2022.
Yes.
Just, what's going on around April of 2022?
This is when, at this time, we have all the growing concerns, down to 6 days of cash on hand.
Well, just to be fair, that was in July, you said.
Yes.
But April of 2022, that's in the middle of 2022 that you talked about a couple of hours ago.
Yes,
And you were the chair in April of 2022.
I was.
And were you aware in April of 2022 that while you were the chair, Exhibit I was an account created at Commerce Bank?
I was not.
The last thing, you were asked about the $16 million on Exhibit E, and you started to answer this a little bit, but I want to ask you again about it, but this is actually it. You've used this phrase a few times, and I want to be sure the court understands. You've used the phrase, all that money going through that account. Why do you use that? Why do you say it that way?
I say it that way because when you have $16 million to be running through this account, where is it? I don't understand where that money went. What do we have to show for that money? Where did it go? What was it spent on? Where did it go? That's a huge amount of money to spend in that amount of time. It's going through the account. We've spent it. Where did it go?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Nothing.
I have a couple of questions. I want to direct your attention back to the 15th of August of 2022, when you called the special meeting. Why did you specifically not invite Mr. Nessie and Mr. Dubit? And don't dance around it. I think what you're implying is you thought they were stealing money or were potentially stealing money. I want to know exactly why you elected not to invite two board members.
One was a signer on an account that, it was a one-signer account.
Did you find anything that led you to believe that they had improperly been placed on those accounts?
When you have a one-signer account for a hospital system, that's an improper setup of an account, Your Honor.
But that would have been your board's responsibility to correct that and take corrective action. My question is, did either one of these gentlemen do anything that you found untoward to put their names on those accounts?
At that time, Your Honor, I didn't know what was going on. There was so much going on in our finances that did not make sense in our ledgers, in our accounts.
But this justified you not calling a duly elected or appointed board member?
I felt at the time, I didn't know who to trust, Your Honor.
Well, wouldn't the fact that, was Mr. Nessie elected to this position?
He was.
Wouldn't the fact that he was elected to this position indicate that the public trusted him enough to put him in that position, that you should have at least respected him as chairman of the board to see him in his position? Whether or not you like what he's going to say or what he's going to vote, unless you have evidence that he was involved in wrongdoing at the time of the 15th meeting.
We were in between attorneys, Your Honor.
Okay, I don't care about that. My question is, did you have any evidence on the 15th or the 14th that Mr. Nessie was involved with embezzling funds or had improperly exercised the power of treasurer of your body?
As treasurer, I guess I would put anybody in the situation I was in. I was chair. I didn't know what was going on, and I could not see the accounts.
Where did you think you had the authority not to call a duly elected board member to a board meeting?
I just went by the bylaws, Your Honor, with the quorum.
Well, the bylaws doesn't say that you have the power to pick and choose who you can invite to meetings, does it, as the chairman? Okay. Now, what changed between the 15th and the 16th that you no longer thought it was a risk to allow Mr. Nisi and Mr. Duba to be at the meeting because they're board members?
We no longer had the threat of the one-sider with Dr. Tobler and Michael Brandon.
Okay, the threat. Did somebody specifically make a threat to you that they were gonna do this? Did you have evidence did anyone come to you and say, these guys are getting big sacks and are starting to load money out of the back of the hospital? Did anybody tell you that?
No.
Okay. What you were reacting to was your own shock of looking at your financial records, and your board had not really been taking care of its financial business. Wasn't that where you were at?
Yes.
And these gentlemen, for whatever their sins may be, or whatever justification there was to remove them, did they do anything that caused this hospital to lose funds? Did they take any funds out of this hospital?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Did the court's inquiry prompt any additional questions from counsel?
Not for me, Your Honor.
No, sir. All right. Ma'am, you may step down. Thank you for your testimony. May I call your next witness?
Robert Neese, please.
Robert Nisi. Please come forward, sir. Sir, please raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and come before the court this evening?
I will.
Please have a seat.
Please state your name and spell it for us, please.
Robert Neese, Robertneese.
Could you take a look at the binder? I'm going to start with a couple of background questions. How long were you on the hospital board?
I should have looked that up before I came. From the last century, sometime in the 90s, I came on the board. And at the time of these events, I was the longest by far reigning. All the other board members were in their first term.
And you were elected by the people of the county?
I was first appointed when a board member decided to resign. And after that, I was elected either 3 or 4 times.
How long did you serve as the treasurer? Roughly.
Well, probably, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 years, I'm not sure. I've been both secretary and treasurer, and I'm not sure when I became treasurer.
Okay.
But I would sign checks occasionally when the CFO was not available.
So, let's start that. I see you've got your glasses. And
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not going to make you read the super little documents, but if you could look at Exhibit F, please.
Exhibit.
F is in front.
Mhm.
Do you know what that is?
Bank cards.
Is that your signature?
That is my signature.
And do you see the writing up in the upper left? It's got this, it says Scotland County Memorial Hospital operating account.
Yeah.
See that?
Yes.
And as the treasurer, you're familiar with that account, right?
Right.
And then below it says revised date, 8/29/14, change signers per SCMH board. You see that?
Change signers. I'm not seeing the change.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Okay, I see it now. Revised date.
So-
8/29/14.
Do you recall roughly when you were first authorized to sign checks by doing a bank card like this?
Apparently 8/29/14.
Okay. And you resigned from the,
As a new treasurer.
yeah, thank you. So this would have been when you became the treasurer, did I understand that?
Apparently.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you resigned from the board in September of 2022.
Yeah, September 29th, I think, or 27th, the final board meeting, the regular monthly board meeting.
So during that entire 8-year period, from August of 2014 to September of 2022, you could have written a check on this account as the sole signer, correct?
Well, I don't know that I can be the sole signer. I guess I was never aware of that.
Well, did you ever steal any money during that time period?
No.
From the hospital?
No.
To your knowledge, as the treasurer, did Michael Brandon ever improperly take money from the hospital?
No. To sign any check, any payment, I had to get that from Tammy Newland in finance. She provided those and was there for each one.
Did you ever serve on the board of, you were here during this folks' testimony, correct?
Mhm.
And you heard her talk about the foundation and the pharmacy. Did you remember that?
Yeah.
And do you understand what she was talking about?
Yes?
Were you ever on the board of the foundation?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No. I think those on the board were Lori Fulk and Julie Lloyd, and also on the board of the pharmacy.
Okay. No further questions.
Briefly, could you look at Exhibit I? You and I remember that happened.
No, we have not.
Exhibit I is in evidence, and it's for Commerce Bank. Were you aware of the existence of this account prior to August of 2022?
No, I was not.
That you were the treasurer at that time, correct?
Yes.
That's all I have to know.
You reject?
Nothing else.
Thank you, sir. You may step down. Thank you, Justin.
Oh, Joni Lloyd.
Joni Lloyd? So Lloyd, please come forward. Please raise your right hand. Ms. Lloyd, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and to come forward to the city of Sentinel, God.
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat.
Well, you know what the first question is going to be. Could you give us your name and spell it for the court, please?
Sure. Joni Lloyd, Joni Lloyd.
And you have served on the board of the Scotland County Hospital, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
When did you first start serving?
I first started serving April 2019,
Were you elected or appointed?
elected.
And are you still on the board?
No, I resigned in September of 2022.
Okay. And you've been in the courtroom this morning, right?
Yes, I have.
So let's talk about August 15th.
Okay.
So at some point on August 15th, you get invited to a board. Can you describe for the judge the circumstances of that invitation?
On the evening of August 15th, I was sitting at home with my husband. We were just getting ready to sit down and watch a movie. And my phone rings, and it's 7:09 in the evening, and it's Ms. Fulk calling. She said, "Do I have a minute?" I said, "Sure." And she said, "Can you talk?" And I thought, yeah, I can talk. And she said, "Can you come out to my house?" And I thought, well, okay, yeah. So I was in my pajamas at the time. I went and I got dressed, I got into my vehicle. I arrived at her house at, I don't know, I'm guessing 7:45. We live in opposite ends of the county. And I arrived at her house.
Did she tell you why she wanted you to come to the house?
No, she did not.
Did you, well, briefly, and we don't need a ton of detail here, but what happened when you got there?
When I arrived at the house, Megan Weber was actually outside the residence. I noticed there were several cars in the driveway. I had no idea what was going on. Megan led me into the house and took me down into the basement where I saw Ms. Fulk, other board members. Obviously Megan Weber was there, Brent Pyrick, the co-COO at the time. And a man I'd never seen before was also in the basement. The other board members that were there were Nick Hatfield and Travis Trueblood.
So, in terms of the board members, we have the chair, and then we have Mr. Trueblood and Mr. Hatfield, and they're already there.
Yes,
And
correct.
then you show up.
Yes.
So, is it some point after you get there, is there a meeting convened?
No. There was never a call to order. There was never time to go into closed session. None of that. No.
Did you ever see an agenda for that August 15th meeting?
No, I did not.
I think we've established this, but Mr. Neese and Mr. Dubit weren't there.
Correct. They were not.
Did you ask why?
Yes.
What was the answer?
There were concerns of, after some things came out, there were concerns that they were involved in missing money, basically.
And who said that?
Ms. Bull.
Did Mr. Trueblood or Mr. Hatfield join in those comments from Ms. Fulk?
As far as agreeing, as I recall, yeah, they never came out and said anything like that.
Were there any documents that you were handed during that meeting to review?
Yes.
Just generally, do you recall what they were?
They were ledgers, from the pharmacy and, the daycare, childcare center. And those were presented to me by Mr. Akeem Hoyle.
And just briefly describe his role in this meeting.
When I got there, he seemed to be directing comments to me. He was introduced. I don't recall who introduced him. He might have actually said his own name, but as I was sitting down, he approached me and he started out and asked me if I knew I was the vice president of the foundation of the hospital. And I knew I was a member of the foundation. I did not, I know I said no, I did not realize I was the vice president. He asked me if I knew that anything in the foundation that went on, that as the vice president, I would be responsible for.
Excuse me, I should have objected, but hearsay. We're talking about some guy who hasn't testified.
Sustain this hearsay. Lay a better foundation.
Well, I'll just move on.
Okay.
So at some point on the night of the 15th, the meeting ends and you go home.
Yes.
What happens the next day, August 16th?
August 16th, I had to take my father-in-law to the wound care clinic, and we were all planning to meet there to escort Michael Brandon off the property of the hospital.
Because on the 15th, the board had decided to fire Michael Brandon.
Yes.
So you go to the hospital sometime in the morning?
Yes. I believe we were escorting him out at 10:30.
Okay. And was there a meeting that evening of the board?
Yes.
How
On
did
the
you
night of
get
the
invited
16th.
to that meeting?
It was decided during the day after Mr. Brandon was escorted out. The board members sat in the conference room where the account from the Commerce Bank was found, and Ms. Folk was trying to find another attorney. And it was decided we needed to have another meeting. And the main reason for the meeting was to release Dr. Tobler of his duties.
Was there, did you ever get a written agenda of the August 16th meeting?
No, I did not.
You heard Ms. Folk talk about how meetings generally are noticed by putting a notice on the internet and then also posting one physically at the hospital. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
And is that consistent with your experience?
Yes.
And neither of those things happened as to the August 15th or the August 16th meeting?
No, they did not.
Could you take a look in the binder at Exhibit I, please?
Is that this? Or,
Yeah, you can use the
Either
paper
one.
one if you
Okay.
want. Whichever's easier for you. They're the same. Just let me know when you have it.
yep, I've got it.
Do you know what this is?
Signature card, certificate.
And I think you said just a moment ago something about on the 16th when you were at the hospital, you saw the Commerce Bank signature card. Is Exhibit I what you saw that day?
No,
Okay.
I did not see the signature card, no.
Okay, so Exhibit I you don't know anything about.
No,
Okay,
I have not seen this before.
no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Briefly, I hope. Ms. Lloyd, we've never met, have we?
No, we have not.
We've never spoken.
No,
You've spoken to Mr. Pearson.
yeah,
On the 15th, at the meeting on the 15th at Lori's house, you voted to terminate Dr. Tobler and Mr. Brandon's employment the next day as well, did you not?
yes, I did.
And, okay, well, and then let me ask you about Exhibit I that's in front of you. At the bottom of Exhibit I don't want to encroach here.
You're fine.
At the bottom, there's a name. Well, first, do you see where it says at the top, signature card and certificate of resolution of corporate board of directors?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yes. And then at the bottom, do you know whose signature that is?
Looks like Angela Schmitter.
And is Angela Schmitter a member of the board?
No,
Is Angela Schmitter the secretary of the board of directors?
no, she's not.
Is Angela Schmitter, or has she ever been the assistant as secretary of the board of directors?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Did you read it?
Nothing.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Could I have 2 minutes to step out and confer with Dr.
We'll take
Tobler?
about a 10-minute recess while council can confer. Mr. Pearson, you had an announcement you wish to make.
Point of rest.
Point of rest. Evidence or on behalf of the defense?
No, sir, it was all part of the cross, so the hospital rest.
All right, closing arguments? Or you
I'll
want
just
to-
reserve it for a post-trial brief.
And if you wish to submit findings of facts, inclusive of law, feel free to do so, whatever briefs you want to make. How much time are you going to need to brief the matter or to follow what you want to file?
I'm out of town a good chunk of this week. We have 2 and a, let me look at the calendar.
Well, I'd like to say a few words.
All right.
Could
We'll
we
let
have
him go ahead and take his
until
grades and we'll let you speak.
October 11th?
I have no problem with that, do you? It'll be, Veterans, or October, I'm looking at November.
That's essentially 2.5 weeks.
I don't have a problem with that. You need a week after that for the defense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll go to the 11th on the plaintiff, and then we'll go 2 weeks after that for the defense. All right, you wish to argue, you may go. You're finished.
Yeah, I'm done.
Well, I'm not gonna start at the beginning, Judge. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate there's not a jury here. I do have a fancy drawing that I was gonna do. I'll even save you from that.
All right.
But I'll talk about it. What I wanted to highlight, what I think one of the biggest things today was what Mr. Neese said, and I think it points out the concern that Lori had. I appreciate what you said, Judge. But when Mr. Neese said he didn't know about Exhibit I think that highlights the situation that Lori was in. And there's no offense to Mr. Neese, by the way. She was just in a whirlwind at the time, and the same with Joe Duvitt. But I think Exhibit I, it corroborates her concerns, that there are accounts out there that even the treasurer doesn't know about. So, what I would talk about briefly, Judge, you saw it, but I think it's a building thing, especially in 2022 for Lori Folk. Whether she's right or wrong, I don't know, but the concern is there, and the issue is whether she thought it was practical or impossible to give more than 24 hours notice. And by the time of August 14th, when she sees these two documents with the daycare and the pharmacy, and it's a week after she saw we wrote off $6 million, she at least thought, I don't have time to do anything other than get a meeting together right now. I heard the court, I understand the court about why invite Neese and Duvitt on the 16th. You heard Lori's explanation. That's what was going through her head. And the issue is sort of what's going through her head. Is it impossible or impractical? And she thought it was. The other thing I would highlight, because I do appreciate the court's attention, and again, there's no jury, so I'm not going to get all dramatic. But 610.020.2 generally requires notice unless for good cause the notice is impossible or impractical. And she testified about that. And what I wanted to emphasize about that, Judge, and I think it's well written in the brief, but maybe not. If it's impossible or impractical, the case is over. You never get to the knowing or purposeful. So the first thing is there's a violation. And there's not a violation if it's impossible or impractical. And, you know, we like to say anything's possible. I thought Lowell would do that, but not anything's practical. And Lori thought it wasn't practical. It certainly wasn't purposeful. She was trying to follow the bylaws. I get how the court probably reads them, how I read them, how Lowell probably reads them, but the way Lori Folk read them, I just need a quorum, and I can do it on less than 24 hours notice. These are not normal circumstances. I'll save you the rest, other than what the drawing was going to be, is a train off in the distance, and that's the beginning of 2022, and in August 14th, it's right in front of her face, and she doesn't have time to think. She needs to act right away.
You're just saving that exhibit for another trial, aren't you?
It's great.
Yeah,
I'll do it now if you
You're just
want.
saving that exhibit for another trial.
No, I don't want you to go out.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate it. Walt, it's good to be with you again. We go way back. Thank you for your attention. It is very serious to the hospital. Thank you.
Anything further for the record before we close?
No, sir.
Court, at this time, will take the matter into submission. Briefing schedule has already been outlined in the record. So I want to compliment counsel on the clarity of the presentation. I understand the facts and the evidence very clearly in this matter. And as soon as I have reviewed the filings by counsel, I will enter my ruling very quickly after that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Dan.
Appreciate your
We'll
time.
stand adjourned. Like a mouse and back and forth. You guys are always welcome.
Thank you.
Before me.